So, without further ado, I open the first session with our first speaker. Very grateful to have Dr. Paul Bate, who has hot-footed it down from Scotland, to talk about one government, one sector, a partnership for success. Introduce the CEO of the Space Agency, Dr. Paul Bate.
Good morning, everybody. It says here on my speeches, thank you, Dr. Beardsley, for that kind introduction. But I've written, thank you, Sarah, for being a trusted colleague and a brilliant, outstanding, kind space leader. I'm delighted to be here today at the 21st Appleton Space Conference, especially so as it's in ESA's Magli-Vezier Conference Centre. And it's genuinely very important that we have a meeting place, a place for the space sector in the UK. And I'm very proud that the European Centre for Space Applications and Telecommunications, better known to its friends as EXAT, is headquartered here in the United Kingdom. Thank you to Laurent, to Nick, to the whole team for bringing ESA to the UK and the UK to ESA. You really do spearhead what we do as a country and how we work with ESA colleagues. And talking of ESA colleagues, Dave Phillips will be giving us an update on ESA's work on telecommunications shortly. This is a key priority area for the UK Space Agency, and EXAT is a vital part of our space ecosystem. So we'll continue to work closely with the ESA team here to support even more businesses, accelerate the development of new technologies, and take advantage of the UK's wider strengths in science and innovation. That's at least partly because space has never been more important and relevant to humanity. With the space economy growing so quickly and becoming increasingly visible, success will be determined not by what the approaches of the past have been, but by the choices that we make now. Just to take one example, SpaceX's rise in value, its launch cadence, its dominance in low Earth orbit shows what can happen when government and business come together. Now, we recognise the challenge that also brings. And so too do the European primes as they look to consolidate their space businesses to compete in the market. Again, bringing its own risks and rewards for businesses across Europe. But the geopolitical sands are shifting. The orbital environment is once again an arena for great power competition. It's also host to a growing number of rising space powers. In this fragmented environment, the UK cannot rely purely on goodwill to protect our national interests in space. We will need to marshal and coordinate the full forces of government, industry, and academia to deliver economic growth and national security. This government knows that we need to make every pound count. I think that's code for its partly tight fiscal position. But primacy has been given to coordination across ministries and agencies. It's what we call the one government approach to space. And we know that 18% of our economy is already dependent on satellite services, and the UK space sector now encompasses over 1,900 businesses and organisations working alongside each other in our world-leading research ecosystem. We've got to recognise the change of landscape. If there was ever a time for delivery and policy to be apart, that time has passed. Someone needs to be the convening voice within government. The clear decision from ministers is that an empowered UK space agency, combining strategy, policy, delivery, funding, will be that centre of gravity for coordinating space. It's therefore essential that the UK Space Agency sits at the heart of government, as close as possible to ministers. Policy is political. We're choosing with ministers how to spend taxpayers' money. And that means we need to be housed within a core government department, the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. And that's why ministers have set an overarching remit for the new UK Space Agency to, quote, set the national direction on space, including cohering policy, strategy and delivery across the whole of government, leading delivery of innovation and world-class science programmes in partnership with the sector and international partners. I'm debating whether I should ever look down at that or just try to memorize it or tattoo it, but whatever it is, that's the remit. The work to secure the new agency's funding as part of the spending review was informed by this new one government mindset of integration and coordination. We were able to make better choices because we understand that space is integrated, from defence and security to industrial strategy. It's a force multiplier for the economy and a key part of national resilience. The UK Space Agency's budget itself will be 2.8 billion for the next 4 financial years. That's on top of the 8% uplift for this year. So that's nice. And it's not just the Space Agency. The R&D budget for the spending review period includes £38 billion for UKRI, almost 9 billion in participation for EU programmes, including Horizon Europe and Copernicus. It's nice to be able to say that positively. And over 1.4 billion in total backing for the UK Met Office to keep the UK at the forefront of climate science and supporting our joint work on space weather. We'll be hearing more about operational space weather forecasting from Krista Hammond later this afternoon. I'm also pleased to see that we have Wing Commander Hamish Pearson from UK Space Command here with us to talk about space skills, training and workforce. We are working more closely with Space Command than ever before, including, of course, through the National Space Operations Centre, which has developed over the past 18 months into an even more valuable asset for both civil and military space. As Sarah says, space is a team sport. More money than ever being committed to space, but with more money comes more focus. So maybe that just takes us to Bremen. Last week, we were out there with the UK Space Minister, Liz Lloyd, and a combined team from the UK Space Agency and from DCIT for the ESA Council of Ministers. We negotiated a £1.7 billion investment package in ESA programmes, which of course returns to industry and universities as contracts. More than happy to answer any questions. If you want to lobby me, it's a little bit too late, but nonetheless. We know that every pound invested in ESA returns £7.49 in direct benefits to our economy. In addition, our work through the ESA, through the European Space Agency, supports the vital international partnerships and helps position us as a global partner of choice in space. Simply put, it lets us do things we cannot do as a country on our own. I think it's vitally important we remember the value of ESA. We've very deliberately focused our new ESA investments on areas that can drive the largest benefits to key priorities of economic growth and national security. While this means we increased investment in some areas relative to the previous council in 2022, I want to acknowledge and be clear that it also means we committed less to other optional ESA programmes and to recognise that other countries increased their ESA spending very significantly. But by taking this more focused approach, we ensured that the UK-led Vigil mission, the Space Weather mission, received the backing it needed from other European countries and partners to proceed to the next phase of delivery. It kept on track the 2028 launch of the UK-built Mars rover, Rosalind Franklin. And these are flagship missions. They mean something over and above the science that they deliver. But just as important is our support for high growth programs, not least telecoms and navigation. On the telecom side, these support a wide variety of businesses across the UK, communications around the Earth and through the Moonlight programme for lunar missions too. We also remain committed to ensuring assured access to space for the UK, which requires access, of course, both to a spaceport and at least one launcher vehicle. That's why we invested a record £162 million into ESA launch programmes, including through the European Launcher Challenge. Our commitment of £501 million, there is a test on these numbers, by the way, so our commitment of £511 million to ESA's core budget backs the UK's role at the cutting edge of space science. And the mandatory space science budget saw a 3.5% uplift above inflation for 3 years. I know that the ESA Science Programme Committee will now review the long-term plan to ensure the programme is optimised within that envelope. But I think it is a tribute to colleagues right across ESA and the space science community that we were able to fund that real increase in the space science budget, despite the affordability challenges right across Europe. However, delivering for Britain's space sector means prioritisation and taking hard choices, during the negotiations and beforehand. As you would have seen, the ESA Earth Observation Programme received significantly less investment than in Seaman 22. The UK made the difficult decision ahead of the negotiations to discontinue funding for the Truths mission. This decision, certainly one of the hardest ones that I had to make, and was not taken lightly. And it was no reflection on the quality of the work delivered on the mission. I want to put on record my gratitude for the hard work of the team that has made Truths an international mission. But as a good international partner, we made sure that the decision was made ahead of the ESA ministerial. We didn't hide behind the complexities of negotiation. And we made sure that our international partners, our academic partners, our industrial partners were all informed well in advance. And I also want to acknowledge the importance of Earth observation to the UK space sector and beyond, and celebrate the successes this year, from the launch of biomass in April and hydrogen SS just at the weekend, to our partnership with the UN Environment Programme and the International Methane Emissions Observatory, which will receive high-resolution methane data based on GHGSat's advanced monitoring capabilities and data analytics. The government remains committed to working with the sector to deliver on the national space capabilities we need as a country, including with the vibrant EO community. A commitment, therefore, of £120 million at this ministerial for Earth observation programmes will support mission studies and innovative ways to process and exploit the data from EO satellites. This is an addition to the UK's existing subscriptions prior to the ministerial, meaning a total of £471 million of outstanding UK funding commitments to ESA for Earth observation projects. Now, space exploration also saw a reduction in funding at this ministerial relative to Seaman 22. But equally, it remains important for the UK, for science, for technology, for international partnerships, and, of course, for driving the geopolitics and the soft power agenda. As well as the Rosalind Franklin rover that I mentioned, we continue to fund and support the Argonaut lunar lander and the Endure programme that will supply radioisotope heater and power systems for future missions. We see an important role for the UK in the future of international space exploration. The investment agreed also follows the record funding in 2022, and the reality is that the previous commitments right across ESA weren't spent at the pace that we had all wanted and hoped across member states. And that left billions of euros in the ESA treasury rather than within European industry and academia. It's to ESA's credit that they listened to that from the member states and have put that problem right. Building on existing commitments, the new funding increases the UK's current level of support for ESA programmes to a total of £2.8 billion over the next decade. And of course, that's before we get to Seaman 28 and Seaman 31 and beyond, that will further increase this funding. We're working hard, of course, to ensure that the outstanding ESA commitments are used effectively throughout this funding period. So, those are the numbers, but how are we bringing this investment together with the rest of government's space spend? How do we make a reality of the one government approach? In the context of the spending review settlement that Sarah mentioned, a refreshed package of ESA programmes, prioritisation of space through the government's strategic defence review and the industrial strategy, next year the government will share a publication that will clarify our prioritisation, ambitions and mechanisms through which the sector can access support right across government. And that publication will go forward further than publications previously have done. It will set out the ambitions, the strategy, if you like, but it will be underpinned by detailed delivery plans for the 5 priority space capabilities. It will feature costed activities out to 2030 and our vision for developing each of the space categories through to 2035. The delivery plans will support commercialization and scale up more than ever before, and they will prioritize activities that secure our space environment and critical national infrastructure. Our focus on delivery continues just this week. Yesterday, I announced at Glasgow, other conferences are available, £17 million for 17 UK space projects through the National Space Innovation Programme, NSIP. This investment accelerates breakthrough technologies, boosts commercialization, and reinforces the UK's global leadership in space innovation. And it's a testament to Harwell's position as an incubator of innovation that a number of these projects are based here on campus. MagDrive is developing a compact metal-based plasma propulsion system to support the next generation of satellite communications. Orbit Fab is developing a refuelable electric propulsion system that will promote greener satellite operations, while Lodestar Space's technology will enable autonomous modular robotic tools for in-orbit servicing and repair. RAL Space themselves successfully secured 260,000 of NSIP funding to develop a new technology to support the calibration of next-generation weather satellites using UK-made electronics. Don't think that's why I'm speaking today, but, good luck with the money. It's not just companies and organizations like RAL Space that are benefiting from NSIP funding, but our world-famous wider research institutions. The University of Birmingham has partnered with the Alan Turing Institute on a project that will receive over £600,000 to design an AI-powered satellite radar system to understand the shape and structure of objects in space. British universities play a leading role in advancing this innovation, particularly in secure communications, environmental monitoring, and navigation technologies. And it's in that spirit that I'd like to mention a piece of British space history. December the 19th, 2 weeks away, marks 22 years since Beagle 2 separated from the ESA Mars Express orbiter on its mission to the Red Planet. However, when no signal was received from the surface of Mars in the early hours of that Christmas morning, the mission was deemed a very British failure. I'm sure there are a few people in this room who will remember that moment and that Christmas with more than a mixture of emotions. But let's just fast forward to 2015 and set the record straight. Because when the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter found the spacecraft and confirmed that Beagle 2 had landed successfully, the record changed. It may not have fully deployed its solar panels. It couldn't therefore complete the mission. But Beagle 2 was the first ever successful European landing on the surface of another planet. The brainchild of the late Professor Colin Pillinger, Beagle 2 trained a generation of scientists and engineers and inspired British enthusiasm for space exploration. Lessons learned from Beagle 2 continue to inform missions today, including ExoMars, and to celebrate this achievement and Colin's legacy, the UK Space Agency is commissioning 10 plaques to be sited at key centres involved in the mission. Because Beagle 2 is a great example of the truism that space is hard. But it's also an important part of our history, on which I hope we continue to learn and to benefit from. I'm looking forward to unveiling a number of those plaques next year and hearing more about people's memories of the mission. Back to the present day. Investment in our future talent so that we can be at the forefront of space frontiers for years to come. That's why we're launching the new Skills for Space internship program. We're funding 50 paid internships with UK-based space organizations, creating opportunities for diverse talents to gain real-world experience and contribute fresh ideas to cutting-edge projects. The program will give students hands-on and paid experience, supporting them to start their journey to becoming the future of our sector. Applications are now open for organizations to host an intern as part of Skills for Space. I encourage everyone in the room to step up. This is your chance to help shape the next generation of homegrown space talent and train the workforce we need, both for now and the future, to help further the UK's excellence in science and innovation. Because we're gathered today at the cusp of a new year. It's also the beginning of a new space age. And 2026 will mark a turning point in the way the UK does space. More focused, more relevant, and more integrated. We will have the clarity on funding, the international partnerships, and the costed delivery plans for each space category for the rest of this decade. We will not be able to deliver our ambitions alone. We will need a whole of society approach to the challenges we face as a country. Space has the power to inspire and can bring people together in a shared sense of humanity. The partnerships and human connections that are created by British businesses, government and universities collaborating across borders on space deepen our relationships, build alliances, and enhance our global influence. That is a beacon of hope. The strength of our space ecosystem derives from the people here in this room, the researchers, the innovators, the investors. Only together, in the spirit of intellectual honesty and scientific curiosity, can we bring our goals together, can we achieve together, and light the way as we bring the benefits of space to bear on Earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a very inspiring talk and a great way to finish off by highlighting the importance of the skills and the intern programme. So thank you for that. We have time for just one question, if there is one from the audience or online.
Thank you. I can see the photographer is already taking a photo of me for next year's slide. We have a question that starts off with thank you very much for the talk. So although the UK is taking a more focused approach and hopefully optimising value for money, the 1.7 million commitment, which is a reduction compared to previous years, and the fact that the UK is now ranking 5th, surpassed by Spain, in terms of contribution, might affect our weight in steering ESA's priorities and programmes. So the question is, how do we make sure we still have a relevant role within ESA?
So that's absolutely right, factually absolutely right. But I sit round the ESA table. I'm on the council. The first thing I'd say, I never thought when we were, putting in when we were 4th, that meant that we had to speak 4th. I don't particularly plan to speak 5th. We'll speak on the things that matter most in the right order. I think one of the things about being the UK and having a slightly unique relationship with Europe, or unique alongside Switzerland and Norway, is that a lot of member states look to us to support a strong and independent ESA. I think ESA looks to us, if I'm actually honest, on that too. And we'll absolutely continue to do that. We will see what Seaman 28 brings. We will see what all our non-ESA domestic bilateral space funding brings. I'm personally not too concerned about exactly where anybody is on the ranking. I also occasionally remind people that when it comes to the mandatory space science program, we rank 2nd because that's all down to our GDP. I think it matters more what we do with the money than exactly where we are in a particular league table. My intent is to carry on sort of driving the UK's interest forward, but also recognising that we're better when we're working together as an independent and strong ESA. That's what I'll do.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on, but thank you, Paul, for an inspiring talk, as always. Thank you very much.
Cool.